On the surface, Sister Wives appeared to be a show about sacrifice, love, and a man attempting to lead a large family through the difficulties of polygamy. But that polished image was torn apart by Mykelti Brown's confession. She acknowledged that the TLC salary wasn't distributed behind the scenes as fans had thought. Kody was the first to receive the money. He was in charge of the negotiations, the direct payments, and, in Mykelti's opinion, the decision of how much the family would really receive. Because there was never enough money, that choice frequently placed the mothers in a bind. Janelle, Christine, and the others had to be frugal. To extend the shelf life of milk, they diluted it. To satisfy the hunger of 18 people, they stretched meals. To ensure that the kids wouldn't go without, they neglected their own needs. Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, TLC Flicks. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. While Kody stayed away from the everyday grind, Mykelti recalled watching her mom's battle fatigue late into the night, creating budgets that never seemed to line up. In front of the cameras, he seemed to want to play the patriarch, but behind the scenes, the women were the ones doing the majority of the work. The women bore the burden while Kody kept the paycheck for himself. This fact was kept secret for years. The family performed their roles, grinned for the cameras, and gave the impression that they were one. Mykelti, however, is prepared to tell the world that the appearance of balance was only a smoke and mirrors trick. Most people could never imagine the weight that Christine Brown carried. She was raising a family of 18 as one of Kody's wives, in addition to her own children. However, Christine was the one in the trenches, ensuring that those kids were loved, nourished, and clothed, while Kody served as the family's public face on Sister Wives. Mykelti described Christine as the woman who made the impossible possible and the center of the household. Christine had to figure out how to make every penny scream because there wasn't much money coming down from Kody's control. No child went hungry because she turned leftovers into feasts and prepared enormous dinners on a shoestring budget. She made sacrifices, recycled, and reused in ways that the home audience could not see. Christine frequently neglected herself. She ignored personal indulgences, hair appointments, and new clothes since the kids always came first. With a resolve that concealed the quiet fatigue she carried within, she threw herself into parenthood. Late at night, Mykelti recalls her mother sitting at the table with her head in her hands, figuring out how to stretch the shopping budget for another week. Although her daughter could see the toll it took, Christine didn't voice any complaints. Because Christine gave everything she had, even when there was nothing left to give, Mykelti thinks she was a better provider than Kody ever was. Christine made more than just monetary sacrifices. She also took on the emotional burden of parenting kids who frequently missed their dad. She established customs that preserved the family spirit, reassured them when he missed important occasions, and supported them when they felt ignored. Christine experienced the realities of being both a mother and a provider, while Kody relished the power of being the husband and the father. Mykelti believed that Christine's quiet strength, unending commitment, and unwavering love were what kept the family together, not Kody. Nevertheless, that portion of the story was never shown to the public. Fans watched Christine play her part on TV, laugh and smile. Behind those smiles, however, was a lady who gave much more than she ever got in return. Mykelti views her mother's sacrifices as evidence that Christine Brown, who kept the Brown family together when it was on the verge of disintegrating, was the true pillar of the family, not Kody Brown. Janelle was the backbone of the Brown family, if Christine was its heart. The household survival was discreetly carried by Janelle, even though Kody was at the heart of the show's plot. According to Mykelti, she was the wife who never stopped working, never stopped advancing, and never stopped looking for methods to support the family. Janelle frequently ventured out into the outer world to make money, in contrast to Christine, whose position was more focused on the home. She put in a lot of overtime while balancing side gigs, jobs, and financial obligations that no one seemed to recognize. According to Mykelti, Janelle was typically the one who managed to fill in the gaps when the cabinets were empty and the expenses were piling up. She was working not only for her own kids, but for all of them. Even while Kody held onto the TLC paycheck, every dollar she earned went toward providing the family with food, clothing, and housing. The glue that prevented the family's fractures from exploding was Janelle's tenacity, but there was a price for her survival talents. Janelle frequently appeared worn out, overburdened by the never-ending responsibilities at home and at work. In order to prevent the family from collapsing under the weight of its own size, she gave up her own sleep and happiness. Mykelti remembers wondering how her stepmother kept going after she arrived home late and still had to deal with the turmoil in the house. Janelle faced emotional responsibilities that few people ever witnessed. She had to strike a balance between supporting the other wives, being loyal to the family, and enduring the disappointment of Kody's contradictions. According to Mykelti, Janelle was the most realistic of them all. She saw through the delusions yet remained steadfast for the benefit of the kids. Sister wives presented Janelle as cool, collected, and reasonable to the outside world. However, Mykelti maintains that the reality was that Janelle was engaged in a never-ending struggle behind the scenes. A struggle to supply, a fight for defense, a fight to keep together a family that was disintegrating due to the dominance and disregard of one guy. In Kody's tale, Janelle was more than just another wife to Mykelti. She was a survivor. Additionally, the Brown family might not have progressed as far as they did without her sacrifices. The first wife, Mary Brown, was by Kody's side before the family expanded into the expansive polygamous home that became well-known thanks to sister wives. Mary frequently came across as aloof, even icy, to the outside world, but Mykelti maintains that her tale is much more nuanced than the cameras ever captured. Mary was responsible for clearing the path from the start. She was the first to share her husband, the first to embrace Kody's ideal of multiple marriages, and the one who quietly endured the hurt of seeing her position in the family erode as additional spouses joined. She still gave in ways that few saw, though, even as her role changed. Mary frequently filled in the blanks, according to Mykelti. Although she didn't always take center stage in the household, she stepped in when others felt overburdened. She carried unsaid pain so the younger wives wouldn't have to, and she provided emotional support to the children who felt ignored. Mary was a silent presence to Mykelti, but she carried more weight than anyone ever realized. Mary was also affected by the financial burden. Mary frequently had to make do with less money while Kody kept his portion of the TLC payout. Because she had little prospects to become financially independent, she learned to live on less and reinvested what she had in the family. Despite having fewer children than Janelle or Christine, she made a greater impact than most people recognized. According to Mykelti, Mary's emotional burden was the most difficult one. Living in the shadow of a spouse who no longer showed her the same attention, she was continuously pushed to the side. She remained, nevertheless, out of faith, devotion, and maybe the hope that the guy she had loved would return to being a real partner. Mary's story frequently appeared detached to fans. However, to those within the family, she was a woman quietly going through heartbreak. Mykelti maintains that Mary's strength was in her perseverance when she had every reason to give up, not in her outspoken statements or obvious sacrifices. Mary carried her power, her loyalty, and her anguish in the shadows. She was neither the mother who reared the most children, nor the wife who was praised. However, she was a member of the foundation, a selfless woman, and another indication that the spouses, not Kody, were the ones who really kept the Brown family afloat. Everything changed when Robyn Brown joined the family. Robyn was seen by viewers as the youthful new wife who seemed to catch Kody's eye, but Mykelti saw her as a symbol of something more complex, the change in power. Robyn joined the family after the cameras had already started, in contrast to Christine, Janelle, and Mary. She entered a world where sister wives was both a business and a way of life. The others were granted advantages that come with that timing. Mykelti remembers that while the other women were still struggling to make ends meet, Robyn's needs appeared to take precedence. Whether Robyn knew the truth about the money is the main query Mykelti poses. She claimed that Kody's TLC salary was strictly regulated and that Robyn, his newest and most beloved wife, might have had access to luxuries that the other wives did not. Robyn's fans frequently observed the changes in her lifestyle, including the better house, the feeling of safety, and Kody's unwavering companionship. The other homes, meanwhile, continued to struggle to make ends meet. This caused a rift among the older kids. While Kody dedicated his time and energy to Robyn's home, they witnessed their mothers working non-stop and giving up everything. It served as a sobering reminder to Mykelti that resources and affection were not distributed fairly inside the Brown household. Mykelti does not, however, explicitly paint Robyn as a villain. Rather, She implies that Robyn might have been shielded from the more brutal truths. She might have been protected from the family's financial hardships by Kody. Robyn might not have realized what Christine and Janelle were going through behind closed doors because she was enjoying her new role. Or maybe she didn't want to see it. Mykelti makes it apparent that Robyn has advantages over other wives because of her position in the family. Robyn appeared to appreciate Kody's devotion and financial priority, while the others suffered the consequences of their sacrifices. And whether she was aware of it or not, her presence widened the gaps in a foundation that had already been eroded by injustice and negligence. For Mykelti, Robyn's arrival meant more than just the addition of a fourth wife. It meant a permanent change in the family's power dynamics. And it was during that change that it was difficult to deny the truth about Kody. For many years, sister wives portrayed the Brown kids as belonging to a large, contented, albeit non-traditional family. They played together, laughed together, and adapted to the difficulties of polygamy, as viewers witnessed. However, Mykelti claims that the kids were carrying a different narrative behind the scenes, one in which their father's presence was more symbolic than actual. According to Mykelti, her mothers played the roles of both parents during her early years. The children were provided with food, stability, and emotional support by Christine, Janelle, and Mary. His presence, however, was erratic with Kody. On camera, he might appear during significant events, but he was frequently absent from his kids' everyday lives. He wasn't really present on birthdays. Events in school were missed. Only the mothers were allowed to have difficult talks about growing up. Early on, the kids discovered that they couldn't rely on Kody to provide them with support or consolation. Instead, their mothers would take the call. Even worse, Kody didn't give each of his kids the same amount of his attention. Favoritism hurt, especially once Robyn entered the family, as Mykelti recalls. Some children witnessed their father devote more of his time to one household than the others, while others wished for even a small portion of his time. The youngsters carried bitterness into adulthood as a result of the long-lasting scars caused by that imbalance. During calm times, the brothers would discuss their frustrations in whispers. They questioned why their father never appeared to take on the necessary role. They wondered why the man who claimed to be the family's leader was the one who did the least to raise them. The concept of dad became more of a label than a reality for many of the Brown kids. According to Mykelti, this absence influenced them. The children were compelled to mature more quickly, learn to depend on one another, and recognize their mothers as the real heads of the home. Some of them were incensed as well, and they still have unanswered questions. Kody Brown was shown on television as a complex, loving father who was attempting to keep his large family together. However, the reality was very different for the kids who lived inside that fiction. Their father was more of a shadow than a mentor in the home where they were raised, and the reverberation of his absence can still be felt in their lives now. Every child should feel special, seen, loved, and honored on their birthday, which is supposed to be the one day of the year. However, disappointment overshadowed those times for many of the Brown children. According to Mykelti, Kody was absent far too frequently, and when he was around, it seemed as like he was playing a part rather than being a real father. She recalls birthdays when, despite financial constraints, Christine would stay up late making cakes from scratch. The children would wake up to a sense of excitement as balloons were hung and homemade decorations were fastened to the walls. However, the most affectionate family moments frequently came with a sting. Would Dad be there? Would he recall it all? Kody occasionally claimed to have commitments elsewhere and didn't show up until much later in the day. At other occasions, he just failed to show up, leaving the kids with explanations rather than memories. Mykelti claims that when he did show up, it frequently felt as though he was preoccupied, his focus divided, and his affection coerced. To compensate for his absence, the mothers put in extra hours at work. They tried to fill the void at the table by clapping more loudly and giving each other closer embraces. However, the kids took note. The sense of being ignored by their father could never be replaced by cake or presents. These birthdays started to represent a greater reality for Mykelti. Kody wasn't really present for his children's daily life. He might stand on screen and declare himself the head of a cohesive family, yet he frequently avoided the most significant events. Not only did these missed birthdays cause temporary sadness, but they also left scars. The kids continued to convey the idea that they couldn't depend on their father's attention and that it was conditional. And that gap never completely filled, no matter how much love their moms gave them. A birthday without your dad isn't just a missed party. It's a reminder that you aren't his priority, Mykelti asserts. The broadcast emphasized family gatherings as happy times for viewers at home. Mykelti's reality, however, presents a more somber image. Beneath the balloons and the laughter lay the anguish of kids who missed their father, who was never truly present. The focus of attention on sister wives was usually Kody, the alleged head of his large family. He was portrayed as the man juggling the demands of leading a multiple lifestyle for marriages and 18 children. However, Mykelti claims that the truth is rather different. Mothers were the ones who really held the reins of power in the household, not the men. Despite the difficulties, Christine was the nurturer, giving her all to the children's upbringing and fostering a sense of coziness. She made customs, extended meals, and provided consolation in Kody's absence. Janelle provided for the family by working long hours outside the house and earning money. Despite being pushed into the background, Mary quietly maintained her position even when her significance was downplayed because she carried emotional responsibilities that no one else could see. And although Robyn's involvement was contentious, she gave her kids security and structure while also changing the dynamics of the household. The core of the Browns was made up of these women. They maintained a home that frequently seemed on the verge of disintegrating by cooking, cleaning, working, teaching, and nurturing. The family wouldn't have made it through without them. Although the public never saw them, Mykelti claims that the spouses were the ones who donned the invisible crowns. Kody, on the other hand, relished the appearance of leadership but seldom carried the associated responsibilities. He spoke about family, unity, and faith, but the mothers handled the day-to-day tasks of cooking, paying the bills, doing homework, maintaining discipline, and providing emotional support. Mykelti and the other kids grew up knowing who they could rely on. Their father wasn't the one. Their mothers were involved. The cameras were never able to adequately capture this truth. Kody was assigned the role of the show's main character. However, the women's tenacity was crucial to the family's survival behind the scenes. According to Mykelti, Sister Wives was never about a single man managing 4 wives. Rather, it was about 4 women bearing the burden of a man who never really fulfilled the role he claimed to have played. She sees the Brown family story as one of female sacrifice rather than patriarchal leadership. Additionally, fans are only now starting to comprehend this story. According to Mykelti, the Brown family had already reached its boundaries before the cameras even arrived. The wives supported the family for years by taking on the responsibilities of the home, putting aside their own wants, and filling in for Kody. Even their loyalty and patience, however, ultimately started to wane. Behind closed doors, Mykelti remembers times when frustration flared. Tired of running a household with 18 children on a shoestring, Christine started to complain. Weary from all the work and sacrifice, Janelle said she was disappointed by Kody's disengagement. Mary, who is often quiet and discreet, was unable to conceal the hurt of being ignored. The culmination of years of disregard, unfair treatment, and broken promises, rather than a single, spectacular incident, was the breaking point. Under Kody's leadership, the family's finances were constantly squeezed, milestones were not recognized, and birthdays were ignored. The women came to understand that the show's portrayal of a cohesive, functional family was a front. The reality behind the cameras was tough, draining, and frequently unjust. Mykelti claims that the wives started to lose faith in Kody, not as a parent, not as a provider, and not as a patriarch. In many respects, they stopped looking to him for leadership altogether, and they no longer expected him to bear his fair share of responsibility. Rather, they depended on one another, creating an implicit coalition that prevented the family from disintegrating entirely. The children were likewise impacted by this disillusioning time. Mykelti portrays the home as having a subdued sense of resignation. The children noticed the stress and understood that their mothers bore the true burden of their parenting, while their father's involvement was primarily symbolic. The breaking moment was both painful and illuminating for Mykelti. It was clear that the ladies were the ones who really kept the family together. It became impossible to deny Kody's emotional and practical absence, and the women's fortitude ended up preserving the family. For the first time, it became evident that the Brown family was surviving despite, not because of, its patriarch, and the family's fractures were no longer concealed. Mykelti watched from the sidelines while the public praised the Brown family on Sister Wives for years, keeping her feelings and complaints to herself. However, she asserts that the moment has arrived to speak. Her disclosures on Kody Brown are about revealing the truth that the cameras never caught, not merely about wealth, absence, or partiality. It wasn't easy to speak up, Mykelti explains. She was aware that it would upset fans, disturb the family, and draw criticism from show devotees. She was aware, however, that keeping quiet would enable a myth to continue, one in which Kody was portrayed as the loyal father and the mom's sacrifices were ignored. Mykelti claims that this realization has to do with responsibility. She wants everyone to know that the family survived despite Kody's leadership, not because of it. The genuine effort of Christine, Janelle, Mary, and even Robyn, who negotiated her own position in the intricate family dynamic, is what she wants her audience to see. She also stresses that the children are the focus of this. They ought to have their experiences, the times they missed having a father around, and the emotional burden they bore acknowledged. By sharing her story, Mykelti aims to make other kids in similar circumstances, polygamist or not, feel heard and accepted. Her disclosure is a liberation as well as a reckoning. It reveals the truth about Kody's priorities and absence while also acknowledging the mother's struggles, sacrifices, and tenacity. Speaking forward now, in Mykelti's opinion, is an opportunity to correct the record, give voice to what has been concealed behind the cameras, and make sure that the true Brown family narrative is eventually conveyed. Fans might be taken aback. Critics might react. But honesty, about her father, about her family, about the long-overlooked truth, is what matters most to Mykelti. The public's response to Mykelti's disclosures was swift and fierce. Sister Wives fans were taken aback. They had been following the patriarch, Kody Brown, who was juggling 4 women and 18 kids, for years. They respected his leadership, his faith, and his cool head, or the portrayal of him in the show, anyhow. However, Mykelti's remarks destroyed that skillfully constructed picture. Reactions on social media ranged from incredulity to indignation. Kody allegedly pocketed his TLC income while leaving the mothers to stretch every dollar, shocking many longtime viewers. Some were taken aback by the assertion that, even at crucial times, he hardly ever engaged with the kids. Viewers started rewatching previous episodes from a different angle, noticing that Kody was missing from important family occasions and that the wives' sacrifices had not been adequately depicted on film. The conversations covered topics such as parenthood, accountability, and the reality of reality TV narratives in addition to money. Fans sympathized with the mothers and commended Christine, Janelle, Mary, and even Robyn for their perseverance and commitment behind the scenes. Others questioned whether it was fair to judge Kody only on the basis of Mykelti's viewpoint, but the discovery had unquestionably changed the subject. The show became more than simply amusement for many viewers. It became a window into actual family issues, injustice, and the psychological toll of a father figure's absence. The audience was forced to face the fact that appearances on reality TV may be deceiving, and Mykelti's bravery in speaking up gave voice to experiences that had been kept quiet for years. The fan response turned into a mirror, reflecting not just the family's hardships, but also the public's interest in family relationships, responsibility, and the secrets concealed beneath public personalities. What started out as a story of praise for Kody Brown had evolved into a conversation about the ladies who carried the family on their shoulders and were the true heroes of the Brown home. The future of the Brown family is uncertain in light of Mykelti's disclosures. Fans unquestioned Kody Brown's image as the serene, loving father for years, and the well-written Sister Wives storyline served to further solidify it. However, that reputation has been damaged, and concerns over his priorities, parenting, and leadership have surfaced. The public's perception is immediately impacted. Fans are reevaluating the narrative that has been presented to them for more than 10 years. The fairness of the charges, the spouse's sacrifices, and if Kody can win back the audience's and his family's trust are hot topics of discussion on social media. Many now view the issue as one of honesty and accountability rather than merely amusement. The future is more complicated within the family. The The moms may feel more empowered as a result of Mykelti's epiphany, which emphasizes their sacrifices and calls for acknowledgement of their contributions. However, it also runs the risk of widening gaps, exposing long-simmering conflicts, and appending the carefully preserved family dynamics throughout the years. Kody will need more than just public declarations or on-camera appearances to fully recover. He must face the critiques head-on, own up to his mistakes, and implement real adjustments in his interactions with his family if he wants to regain credibility. It remains to be seen if he can actually accomplish that, or if the disclosures have irrevocably changed his legacy. The story may no longer be about appearances or image for the spouses and children. Instead, it is about justice, honesty, and acknowledging the sacrifices they have made. Kody and the family are forced to confront long-hidden realities as a result of the limelight that once exalted him, revealing vulnerabilities. In the end, the Browns' future might depend more on the tenacity of the moms and kids who have supported the family through years of adversity than it does on the leadership skills of a single man. Mykelti's choice to speak up has ushered in a new era in their lives, one in which the truth will not be denied and the true heroes of the tale will at last be given the credit they merit. Let us know in your comments. And stay tuned by subscribing our channel to get more updates like this. Thanks everyone.